And now, the Westwood One Radio Networks proudly present Casey's Top 40. Brought to you by Naturally Brewed Lipton Original Iced Tea. This ain't no sippin' tea. By Cinnaburst Gum with outrageous flavor crystals. May not be suitable for adults. And by Hershey's Bar None, the one with more.
Hello again, everybody, and welcome to Casey's Top 40. I'm Casey Kasem, and I'm all set to count down the 40 biggest hits on the pop chart. Our rankings come from the official survey of radio stations from coast to coast. The survey is conducted by Radio and Records, the industry's #1 newspaper. Well, we have one brand new song on the survey this week, the latest hit by rocker John Mellencamp. Let the countdown begin.
Number 40.
Our one and only new song on the survey is the first single from the new John Mellencamp CD, Dance Naked. Here's John along with singer Meshell Ndegeocello and their remake of the Van Morrison song, Wild Night.
Casey's Top 40.
Well, now we're up to the duet, Wild Night. The woman who sings on it says she carries on a proud African tradition, a style of singing and storytelling that dates back thousands of years. Before there was written history, there was oral history, tales which were memorized and passed on verbally from generation to generation. Aside from history and legend, many ancient religious works were first passed on verbally before they were written down. That process happened in Europe, it happened in Asia, and it happened in Africa, where a person who passed on that oral history through telling tales was called a griot. Some African-American musicians see themselves as modern-day griots, passing on the tales and proud traditions of their people. One of those modern-day griots is Meshell Ndegeocello. Now, even though to some her name might sound Italian, Ndegeocello is actually Swahili for free like a bird. Meshell takes her heritage very seriously, and she sees herself as following in the footsteps of other modern-day griots who are poets, sociologists, and musicians all rolled into one. People like Stevie Wonder, Nina Simone, and Curtis Mayfield. Meshell says that was her goal in her debut album called Plantation Lullabies, which she says is, quote, a metaphor for the plantations of the world, past and present, whether they be Bantustans, reservations, ghettos, both corporate and urban, or the prison of a colonized mind, unquote. But not all of Meshell Ndegeocello's work is so serious. She also sings songs like this one, her duet with John Mellencamp.
American Top 40. Please hold.
I'm Shadoe Stevens. All right, here's a lady with an interesting story. Started out as a sculptor working with clay, but now she molds music. Born in Germany, in Berlin. But Meshell Ndegeocello grew up in Washington, D.C. Meshell's father and older brother are also musicians. And she told us instruments were around the house all the time and started to take over my art space. I wanted to be a drummer, but my mother wouldn't let me. One day, one of my brother's friends left his bass at our house. First time I picked it up, it just felt natural. So Meshell forgot about clay and concentrated on her new love. She joined the jazz program at the Duke Ellington School for the Arts and continued studying at Howard University. By the late 80s, Meshell was playing in clubs and different local Washington funk bands, the go-go scene, as they call it. She made some of her own independent records, good enough to snag 3 Whammies in 1990 Washington Area Music Awards. Then she moved to New York and became an in-demand session player. A couple of years ago, she signed to Madonna's new label Maverick and recorded her album Plantation Lullabies, where she wrote and arranged every song, played piano, keyboards, guitar, did drum programming and percussion, all vocals, and, of course, played bass. Meshell Ndegeocello is one versatile lady. So it's no wonder John Mellencamp asked her to play bass and sing with him on his latest hit,
American Top 40.
I'm Shadoe Stevens. Seems like almost every artist has to live a double life while struggling to make it. Some have had to take more than one extra job. The woman here at number 11 with John Mellencamp had to take her share of odd jobs, so naturally, when we talk to Meshell Ndegeocello, we ask for all the seedy details.
I've had all kinds of jobs. Worked at a bookstore, went to barber school, PA'd on films, like was a gopher. record store. Got fired from the record store though. I played the music too loud.
Casey's Top 40.
For Casey Kasem, I'm David Perry. Now we're up to the current hit for John Mellencamp and Meshell Ndegeocello. They'd never met before they worked together, but it turned out they did have an unknown connection back when she was 13. When John picked Meshell to help him out on his album Dance Naked, he didn't have a clue whether she knew who he was. He'd heard her critically acclaimed CD Plantation Lullabies, and he liked it so much he decided he wanted to work with her. So his manager contacted hers, and they set up some time for Meshell to fly from her home base in New York City to John's studio in Bloomington, Indiana. When Meshell got there and started working with John and his band, he was surprised at how quickly things came together. He says, quote, "She was great. She just fit in. Everybody loved her." But a much bigger surprise was in store a couple of days later. It happened while the band was taking a break. Meshell walked up to John and asked, "Who won that pink house?" For a moment, John was confused. He couldn't figure out what pink house Meshell was talking about. That's when she reminded him about a contest John had held on MTV back in 1984. At the time, he was promoting a single called Pink Houses, and the grand prize was an actual pink house John had in Bloomington, not far from the place where they were recording. John searched his memory and told Meshell a girl from Seattle had won the house. Then he asked why she wanted to know. Well, it turned out that Meshell, who was 13 at the time of the contest, was such a big fan of John's that she not only entered the contest for his pink house, she'd entered it 15 times.
John Mellencamp, Dance Naked at 24, the first of two songs in a row from him on American Top 40. The one at number 23 features John and his duet partner, Meshell Ndegeocello. That's a lady with an interesting story. You know, scholarships are awarded in many areas: sports, the arts, and in her, Meshell Ndegeocello's case, music. And she turned that opportunity into a creative experience.
It's like a scholarship. I got a scholarship from the Jimi Hendrix Foundation. And I arranged, I have now 18 Hendrix tunes. And that I did that are really different. They're not remakes or anything. Like sometimes I use his lyrics and use different music. Or use his music and different lyrics. I made Purple Haze a ballad. It's like on just piano and strings. It's just doing different things.
American Top 40.
I'm Shadoe Stevens, and this next song was a top 10 comeback for John Mellencamp. He remade a Van Morrison song from the 1970s as a duet with bass player and singer Meshell Ndegeocello. And she told us how that wild night went.
Actually, I just went to play bass, and Hank played some bass on the record. And then he was like, listen to this song. We learned it in about an hour. Recorded it. Ended up being a duet. Wasn't scheduled to be the first single, but the record company dug it. And there you had it. It literally happened just that freely.